Evening, guys, or good night. Um, just wanted to make a little video because there was something that I wanted to. It's fresh in mind. I was just speaking about it briefly earlier on today, and I've been wanting to like speak about this for quite a long time. So it ain't like random. Just someone brought up the subject, and I started going into one. But yeah, I wanted to speak about my top five MMA fighters of all time in my time, and for what I see, yeah, and for what I like. And obviously, everyone's got their opinions. Some will agree, some won't. But obviously, I'll say a little bit my background to what I know. Yeah, like I remember, like in the early 2000s, like I'd hear like people speaking about like these Gracie brothers in Brazil, like they're like half the size of their opponents, and they're like getting them to submit and this and that. And I think I picked up a video down at Elephant and Castle. I'm pretty sure it was Elephant and Castle. I picked up a video in the old shopping center, and I started watching it from then. And then obviously, like I was hooked. Like I was like a fan, you know. So obviously, going back in history, it does evolve, and I'm pretty sure like if Maradona, Pele played today, they wouldn't be as fit as the players that are today. But everything is done by eras. Do you know what I mean? Everything's evolving. Things are getting better. Technology's getting better. People are knowing more about the human body. So what someone does in this era doesn't mean they want to. Do you know what I mean? Like it's all about eras. So yeah. So I just want to say about my top five in MMA. So starting with number five. Um, Number five for me is Chuck Liddell. Um, Reason being, right, with Chuck Liddell, he's just a bad motherfucker. Yeah. The Mohawk, like, like the tune he used to come out with a DMX, but other than that as well, his skill. And also as well, like he was from them Pride days where it was crazy. Do you know what I mean? He was in that. Anyone that saw Pride at the time would have thought it was crazy. Do you know what I mean? And the amount of steroids that were flying around then. Now they've got testing. Do you know what I mean? But back then there was no testing, and you can see those guys were proper juiced up. Proper juiced up. So to be out there doing all of that, and in a more of an unregulated fight world, yeah, then yeah, that you got to big that up. But yeah, so he came through that, got to the UFC, won UFC championship. He lost to Randy Couture, came back, avenged it, which I respect. I respect that, to lose and come back and avenge it against someone and convincingly. It's respect. Yeah, it's a real test of character because it's psychological as well. You have to overcome a lot of barriers when someone's like beating someone, and also as well the Tito or T situation, because people might laugh at Tito and this and that, but at one time he was like the baddest guy walking around, and he beat him twice convincingly in his peak. Um, yeah, so I would say like yeah, Chuck Liddell also as well what he done, like the attention it brought as well, the all round package, and also like the highlight reel finishes and his knockout power. And I believed him when he said something like he said, "Oh, you know what? Like, obviously he was still talking like it was the now, but obviously his time had gone. But he was like, yeah, I'd be a bad matchup for like John Jones. Like, I'd be able to beat him." And he was just saying like his stand up, like his power and stand up, John Jones will like try and match you at anything that you're good at, and he felt like he would be able to beat Jones like in terms of stand up. Yeah, and I've got a feeling like he probably might get the better of him, on stand up. And also, what I like about Chuck Liddell is like many times he gets taken down and somehow he's able to walk himself or scramble to, sort of wriggle up to the cage and stand up. He stands up a lot when a lot of guys just lay on their backs and aren't able, or no, they haven't got the skill or they haven't got the strength to stand up, and he can stand up after being taken down. And that's a big, big thing because I couldn't do it. Do you know what I mean? And he does it. So, yeah, big up the Iceman. Like, in adulthood, I would say like if I was a kid, that would be the man that like I'd look up. Like, I think he's amazing. I think he's Superman. Yeah. So yeah, big up Iceman. You're my number five. Um. So number 4 is this is going to be joint now. Joint fourth. Joint fourth is going to be um, Jose Aldo and Fedor Emelianenko. Fedor the Emperor Emelianenko. Um, Jose Aldo, I haven't seen a lot of his earlier matches, but he came with a heavy reputation, and he never he was pound for pound at one time the best or one of the best, and I'm sure. Don't quote me on this, but I think he went 10 years, a whole decade undefeated, taken on all comers in all different organizations, come to the UFC, done the same thing. So he went 10. Yes, he may have lost to Conor McGregor in 13 seconds, but who knows if they replayed that again or had a rematch, direct rematch based off of like past performances, I would still have to give Jose Aldo the at that time. I'd still have to give him I'd have to say he would win, you know. And also as well, like he met Conor McGregor at the end of his like best years. It wasn't in his prime 5 or 6, 7, 8, 9 years before. You know, so and in MMA, it can get finished in so many different ways. So like just because he lost and he looked bad towards Connor with Connor doesn't mean that you dismiss everything the man's done before. The man went undefeated 10 years, taken on all comers, world champion, multi different organizations. So yeah, I've got to big him up, man. And I think like there was a statistic like because he's a stand up, a lot of stand up Muay Thai and that, but he was tremendously hard to take down. So I think he had a statistic where he wasn't taken down for a long period in the UFC whilst standing and striking and not trying to wrestle. So for that, you got to respect him. So kudos. Big up Jose Aldo. Yeah, I'd have him at number 4. Because sometimes these people, they come around for like 2, 3 years and you say this and that about them. But, you know, checking the man's body of work, going back a decade to stay on top undefeated in a sport like that. Close to a decade or even more. I think it might have been 11 years. Don't quote me on that. Like, that's near on impossible. That's a miracle, especially in a sport as random as MMA. Yeah. So next is Fedor Emelianenko. Francis Ngannou is catching him if he carries on in the same fashion. But for me, he's the best heavyweight of all time. Not the biggest heavyweight, but again, he was in that Pride um, organization where there was all sorts of craziness. There was all types of monsters. Bob Sapp, like the big tall, like Chinese guy or whatever. It was just crazy. It was exciting. It was crazy. And he was in that, man. And a lot of the guys that did come to USA had already met him and been beaten him by him. And he came over to a lot of other organizations when he was past his prime. And again, I think he went 28-0 or 28 fights without losing, yeah. And to do that in MMA, especially at the higher weight, at the lower weights, I can understand, but at the higher weights where the men hit tremendously harder, yeah, because human beings have got the same size brain, doesn't matter how tall or big you are, yeah. So the men hit harder, like it's easier to like KO people the bigger you are, just in boxing, all types of stuff, yeah. So for him to go that far into his career and not be defeated, facing all types of guys on all types of drugs and all that type of stuff, because that's what was going on in Pride at the time. Kudos, big yourself up, man. And like also like his mentality, his stone cold face, and do you know what I mean? I just something about him I just really like about him. Yeah, like yeah, um, yeah, and just like yeah, some of the legendary scenes that I've seen from him in Pride and stuff like that. Yeah, and the way he was spoken about as well, and the fact that he wouldn't come over to the US, it just created a mystique as well, you know. And yeah, and to go 28 fights in that organization or whatever, or to go so many fights undefeated, especially in the heavyweight division, you got to give that man a lot. You got to give that man a lot of respect. So big up. That's my joint fourth. Now at number 3, really, if I was betting, I'd probably put him at number 1. But just based off of what I've seen, I'm going to put him at number 3. And that would be George Rush St. Pierre. Um, what I'd like to say about him is, like, I think he's the king of, like, game plans. When he's got a game plan, he executes it, he sticks to it. It doesn't always look good on the eye, it doesn't always look exciting, but he sticks to it and he wears his opponent down and does what he needs to do to get the W. And that's why I would definitely say put him at number 1 if it really came to it. And he always just somehow gets the W, you know? So I've got to, like, respect that. Yeah, and he's just one hell of an athlete. Probably the greatest athlete all round out of all the guys I'm speaking about. You could tell he'd be good at virtually every sport he ever tried, you know. And yeah, I like his personality as well. Very humble. Respects the martial arts. Um, yeah, he's just a real, like, yeah, I like his character as well. You ain't got a bad word to say about him, you know. And he took on all comers as well. You know, he had some magnificent matchups with BJ Penn, Matt Hughes, and all that sort of stuff. And also, he avenged that freak defeat by Matt Serra. But you know that happens, you know. But yeah, I just completely rate him, and all round he's just like he's brilliant, you know. And he's just like very adaptable. And the thing I like about him, yeah, he just comes off like not like a fighter, but like an artist, you know. A lot of other guys come off like fighters. He just comes off like an artist, you know, working on his trade and working on his craft. Sorry, and he's just great from top to bottom. Personality, and also like just doing what he has to do to get the win. And yeah, he has no obvious holes in his game. He's probably not the best striker in the world, but he's great. He's still great. He does enough to get by, you know. So yeah, that's George St. Pierre at number 3. Now number 2, I'm gonna put John Jones at number 2. First and foremost, he's never been beat. You know what I mean? At a high level, he's never been beat. He has got that one defeat on his record, where I believe he done an illegal move, and it was against Matt Hamill, the partially deaf guy, I believe. He lost to him, and that was by disqualification, and he was winning. You know what I mean. But obviously, a defeat is a defeat, so he's had a defeat, but not really because he was winning. He was just done something illegal, and or a move that he wasn't meant to do, and the guy wasn't even hurt, I don't think. But you know, you're not allowed to do that in the UFC, so like he got the defeat, yeah. But no one's really beaten John Jones or got the best of him, you know. But one thing I will say is that, and I wouldn't let him off of this. Like, he's had a lot of time off in his career through misdemeanors and stuff going on outside of his life, which we can make no excuse for. Yeah, only he can make excuse for. Yeah, and for that reason, that's why I got him at number 2, because yes, he hasn't been beat. However, had he have been more active within the UFC and the way that the way being a champion can weigh heavy on a man's shoulders, I believe he would have been beaten in those times. But in those times that he would have been out, because he would have had to defend the title, and at some point someone would have beaten him. And having that time out, he was able to refocus. He was able to come back and be a better him. Maybe stop drinking, stop doing this and that. So it wasn't like he had a broken leg or a broken arm or something, or it was injured or whatever, and he had to recover and rehabilitate himself. Obviously, he may have been hurting in his mind, but basically, he's had a lot of rest period through his career. I can't give him like Um, I can't say he was injured and all that sort of stuff. He's had a lot of rest time throughout his career that other fighters ain't had. Other fighters just need to be defending their title every 6 months. He didn't. He had other issues going on that allowed him to have time off, refocus, and come back and be a better him. And in those times, I believe if he'd have been having to defend, he would have potentially lost. You know. But other than that, you still got to give him credit for what has been seen and what has been seen. That like no one's ever beaten him. And what I like about John Jones as well is like he beats people at their own game. Like he needs to be careful if he does that with Francis Ngannou, though. If you try and strike with Francis Ngannou, the man's on a different level with power, yeah. However, like I like the fact that I remember one time I think him and Daniel Cormier. He said to Daniel Cormier, who's an Olympic, I think he's was he a bronze medalist, silver medalist, whatever, a wrestler. He said, "Listen, I'll take you down." He took him down, yeah, and that's an Olympian, Olympic pedigree wrestler, But he said, "I'll take him down." He took him down. There's a few other guys as well. Whatever they're known for, he tries to like beat them at what they're known for, and he often does, and he has done. Yeah. So that there is to be respected. To be a martial artist, mixed martial artist, is all different disciplines, and to go into someone else's discipline and potentially dominate them or at least match them, you got to respect that, because to do that on different disciplines is like crazy. But yeah, so he stood up to a lot of guys that um he stood up to a lot of guys where he tries to beat them at their what they're good at, and he's often come out on top. So you got to respect that, yeah. And yeah, yeah. So once again, big up John Jones. Um, yeah, so much potential still. Um, wish him nothing but the best. And yeah, just a great guy in the end, man, great guy. So I wish him nothing the best. And yeah, obviously it changes the debate if he goes up at heavyweight and then beats Francis Ngannou and all that sort of stuff. Then obviously he elevates himself even more. But yeah, that's my number two. Right now at number one, this is for me. I would put Anderson Silva at number one. Um, I get the feeling like we've never ever seen his full potential. He comes off like he prefers to just perform than win sometimes, just his personality. Yeah. There's so many superlatives I can give the man, but like, for me, I was speaking to someone earlier about this, like when you see someone win in many different ways, like I've seen Anderson Silva win, you've seen him win in many different ways, like, the Vitor Belfort kick, the Rich Franklin, the way he beat him, Chris Lieben, um, Travis Luter, um, also like the way he beat Chael Sonnen. Like, I was gonna go on about this. Chael Sonnen was juiced up, mate. He was on a testosterone, whatever. Yeah, and I heard that. Obviously, I don't know what it feels like, but I heard like it makes a man that's like my age, 43, feel like he's 19, or whatever, and even more. Yeah, and it's just crazy. Like, gives you everything back that you had in your youth. Yeah, and more. Right, and you can see by the rematch that they had, it was completely different. But in the first fight, Chael Sonnen was able to like literally pummel and beat up Anderson Silva for 5 rounds. Anderson Silva was taken down and beaten down for 5 rounds. In a rematch, it was complete opposite. But with the TRT or the testosterone, he was able to hold him down for 5 rounds and literally beat him in all departments. And 2 minutes to go, only a great guy can do that. He pulls out a triangle, wins. Yeah, that's like you're in total adversity. 23 minutes of beatdown, and in 2 minutes you just flap on a. Obviously, it's a bit of a mistake from Chael Sonnen. They shouldn't be getting caught like that. But at the same time, man, you got to respect that. You got to respect that. So that there as well, like winning from different positions, being in a little bit of adversity and stuff like that, and like his his style of like martial art as well. Like I really respect, and his respect and his mentality, and the fact that he's kind of good at a little bit of everything, and some of his dynamic finishing and his striking and all that sort of stuff. You know, yes, I'm going to say this, like the number one ability you need in MMA is not boxing, not Thai boxing, not even jiu-jitsu. I'd say grappling, wrestling. Yeah, you need those things first. Yeah, I'd take a wrestler over any other discipline, or possibly a jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy over any other discipline to become good at MMA and transfer over to MMA. If you haven't got one, most of the other guys, yeah, they might do all right, but generally speaking, if someone does jiu-jitsu or does wrestling, to me, they're gonna go quite far in the sport. That's the number one thing that you need. Yeah, right. And Anderson Silva ain't the best at those two, and he was able to rise to the top. Do you know what I mean? So like, yeah, just in terms of martial art, like because I like to see everyone likes to see skills and stuff like that, and different kinds of finishes and stuff like that. Not just like a guy sort of taking a guy down, ground and pounding him, and all this sort of stuff. You've got all different type of facets here, and I feel like he puts it together the best, or he did in his peak. Forget about now, like he's 50 years old, but in his peak, he put it together crazy. And when he first come to the UFC, like his first 3 or 4 fights were like nothing you'd ever seen, you know. So yeah, no, Anderson Silva is definitely my number one. Um, Also, as well, he was successful. Izzy Real Adesanya tried to go up in weight, was unsuccessful. Yeah. Um, Anderson Silva went up in weight and was quite successful. Like he beat quite a few guys at 205. He didn't face the champion John Jones at the time. I think they're friends, isn't it? I don't know. But like, he's gone up and down in weight and done quite well and won, you know. Made Forrest Griffin look like, you know. I love Forrest Griffin, by the way. Yeah, but anyway, yeah, yeah, like so just summing things up. Chuck Liddell down at number 5 or up at number 5. Joint 4, Jose Aldo and Fedor Emelianenko. Third, George St. Pierre. Second, John Jones. And at number 1, Spider Anderson Silva. Anyway, you guys have a good night. Take care. God bless. Love to absolutely everyone. Take care. One. Bye.